Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bible Discoveries, the weekend show. Matlock is back. Hey, Matlock.
Hey.
Everyone was praying for you. Everyone was missing you.
Really?
Yeah.
Shocked.
It's been 4 shows. We had 4 shows without you. I did 2 with Dad, and I did 2 by myself.
It was great. I had a great time.
And you're back.
Yes.
Well, great time is a little bit of a stretch. You were with the kids.
That's right.
And you were sick.
I'm sick. That's right.
So, but you're back now. So that's
I'm
great.
back.
So
Yeah,
welcome back.
Yeah.
And you have you're back in time for the Joshua episode.
That's right. But it might not be me every time though. It might be other people as well,
Yeah.
right? Everyone sprinkled in and out. So
rotate in some other cast members.
That's right.
Fun.
Yeah, it's just fun. Yeah, that's great. No, this is good. I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah.
All right, Corie, what's up? What are we doing?
Okay, so our reading this week from Monday to Sunday is Joshua 5 to 24, which is the rest of Joshua. So it ends that book. And then on Sunday, we're supposed to read Psalm 34 and 35.
Okay.
Yeah. So today we are going to be recapping that Joshua 5 to 24. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You ready to see
I have no choice.
what we read?
Yeah.
We're going to subject you to.
Yes. I'm
Our weekly
enslaved to
reading.
your decisions.
Okay, Joshua chapter 5. So remember, the Israelites have just crossed the Jordan River, and they have set up camp at Gilgal. They set up the 12 stones at Gilgal, and this is where Joshua 5 picks up. So the Israelites still at Gilgal. They're actually circumcised here at Gilgal, and they were, you might think it would be a weird time to do that. Probably would have been better on the other side of the Jordan when they weren't so close to enemy territory. But we're told that they weren't attacked at Gilgal during this time because word had spread about them crossing the Jordan, and it probably would have been seen as like a very negative omen for the people of the land. So God kept the people safe there while they were recovering, the military men specifically, while they were recovering at Gilgal. There at Gilgal, they celebrate the Passover, the first Passover in the land, and they eat bread and grain that they harvest from the area. So they make their unleavened bread from that area. And we see Joshua meeting the commander of the Lord's army. This is another instance in the scripture where I would like a little bit more detail, but it is not given to us. But it's still cool.
What detail do you need?
I would like to know, we know how that conversation went.
Yeah.
But I would like to know, like, what did the commander of the Lord's army look like? This is the angel of the Lord. This is where Joshua bows down in worship and the angel accepts it.
Yeah, just like the tree, because it's the same thing. You're on holy ground. The same principle applies. Yeah. So it's the same angel of the Lord that was in the burning bush. Yeah. It's the same. Yeah. So Moses goes to, Joshua goes through a very similar process that Moses does.
Just kind of in a reverse order,
well,
right? Because he splits the Jordan.
Yes.
And then he meets the commander of the Lord's army, whereas Moses got the burning bush first, and then
that's
the Red Sea split. But it's a similar.
It's very similar. Yes.
Similar things.
Different missions, right?
Different missions.
That's right.
So on the cusp of warfare, this is really significant that Joshua meets the commander of the Lord's army, because what it shows Joshua and the Israelites, and thus all of us who are reading this after it's happened, it emphasizes that it's God who is waging the war, that there's a spiritual side of this battle that's going on, that the reasoning behind it is spiritual. God is taking judgment on the evil that's going on in the land, and the Israelites are partaking of the judgment.
I think what's interesting too is you have this really interesting pattern, this Exodus pattern, like I was saying with Moses and Joshua. But so they cross over the Jordan, which is very similar to the Red Sea, right? And what does Paul compare the Red Sea crossing to baptism?
Yes.
So you have this this typological, it is weird. It's a little strange, but a baptismal process that occurs with Joshua. Then there's circumcision. Then there's Passover, aka communion, and then commander of the Lord's army, then warfare. So you have that pattern that takes place. It's very similar to the New Testament pattern.
It is.
Right? Because you have baptism, circumcision side by side.
Circumcision of your heart.
That's right. And then you have the communion service. And so, but yeah, I just think it's very typological of this war that's to come. And of course, the wilderness comes after for Moses and warfare. But those are actually, when you see with Christ in the New Testament, when he goes into the wilderness wandering, he engages Satan. It's spiritual warfare. The wilderness is spiritual warfare. So you have this same pattern, right? That's overlapping. This is how typology works. It's like they have, you see this overlapping pattern. It's like a spiral. It's not, history repeats itself. So it's not quite identical, but you can see where, like in that spiral, like where they connect, and they somehow overlap to connect in meanings. However you want to picture that.
Because God's teaching us to expect the Messiah.
Yes.
And then what to expect of the Messiah.
Yeah.
Once he is here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Okay. Joshua chapter 6. This is the famous taking of the city of Jericho. So it's pretty unusual, to say the least, not typical of ancient warfare. The Israelite fighting men spend 6 days marching around the city. They march around the city once each day for 6 days while the priests are blowing trumpets. And then on the 7th day, they march around the city 7 times, and then they shout, the walls collapse, and they go in and they destroy everything and everyone except for Rahab and her family, which we had read early in Joshua that Rahab had defected to the Israelite side. She wanted to become, essentially, she wanted to ally herself with Israel. So then we're told that Rahab and her family are placed outside of the camp of Israel. So this would be a time of mourning for them, a time of cleansing for them. But we do know that they are eventually fully integrated into Israel. And we know this because Rahab marries an Israelite, and she shows up in a later genealogy, a very important genealogy, as it will turn out. Okay, Jericho, the city, is essentially offered like a burnt offering. It's completely consumed. And Joshua pronounces a curse on anyone who would rebuild it in the future. So the idea here is that it was supposed to remain a sign of what happens when you rebel against the Lord. Destruction. Okay, Joshua 7. Israel shockingly gets beaten when they go to take the small city, or maybe some historians think it was more like a military outpost. It's called Ai. Some people say Ai. It was so small that Israel hadn't even sent all of its fighting men to go defeat Ai. But we're told that Israel lost 36 men in the fight. So Joshua goes to the Lord. What's going on? You said you'd be with us. This is only the second place that we're taking, and we lost. What's going on? And it turns out that a man named Achan had kept some of the plunder from Jericho. Now, it was a known rule going into the Battle of Jericho that if you took a thing that had been devoted to destruction, that you became devoted to destruction. Achan didn't believe this or didn't care. And as a result, the entire nation had lost its protection. The whole nation had become devoted to destruction. So Achan receives capital punishment for this. And God is able to be with the Israelites again. In Joshua chapter 8, we get Ai being destroyed. And this time, plunder is allowed to be kept by the Israelites. So it was only sometimes that they couldn't keep the plunder. And this is why it's like, Achan, why? Why? Can't you just wait one more? Although there probably wouldn't have been the type of things that he stole in Ai, because it was much smaller. All right, Joshua 9. So not surprisingly, the kings of the area, because there's a bunch of city-states going on in the land of Canaan at this point, the kings of the area see the Israelites coming, and they develop a coalition against Israel. But the Gibeonites, who are a coalition of cities in and of themselves, they decide to take a different tactic. They're not going to come against Israel militarily. Instead, they make a treaty with Israel, a peace treaty with Israel, but they lie about where they're from. But they know that if they can get Israel to ally themselves in a treaty, then Israel's going to have to keep their word, because that's just the way, your word was your bond in the ancient world. And if you didn't follow through on a treaty, that it was extremely dishonorable. It worked. The Gibeonites saved their 4 cities, which are listed as Gibeon, Kephirah, Beeroth, and Kiriath Jearim. Okay, Joshua chapter 10. The coalition of kings led by the king of Jerusalem, so these ones who are militarily going to attack Israel, they decide to attack Gibeon, because Gibeon has allied herself with Israel. And Joshua marches to Gibeon's aid as per their treaty. This is when Joshua commands the sun to stand still. And it works. They have enough time to defeat their enemies. Okay, there's also a quick record of Joshua going to the cities of that coalition of kings and taking them for Israel. Joshua 11.
I think there's something interesting with the sun standing still.
Okay.
Now, obviously, now, people always take the physical, like how does that work physically? But theologically, or just prophetically, I think there's interest there as well, because at the end of time, the opposite happens, where the sun will be turned to darkness. There's no sun at all. But then it's right before judgment comes, and then there's no more sun at all. So there's no more darkness at all. The night's gone, the darkness is gone. There's only light.
Right. I
just think there's a relationship there between those two. It's like one's pointing to the other. But anyways, it's something we could delve into another time. We got to keep going.
No, it's very cool.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Joshua chapter 11, there's another alliance of kings, this time from northern Israel, northern Canaan. And this coalition is led by Jabin, the king of Hatzor, a very famous city archaeologically. So Israel defeats them, chases them, and Joshua marches to Hatzor and destroys the city and sets it on fire. And then he goes and he takes all of the other royal cities in that coalition. But there's a note that they didn't burn all of those other cities. They just burned Hatzor, probably because the king of Hatzor was the leader of the coalition. But this is really important archaeologically because a lot of times you'll hear this lets us know, the Bible is letting us know what to look for in the archaeological record and what not to look for. So if you are into biblical archaeology like I am, details like this is really important because sometimes there's this false idea that Israel just went in and wiped out everybody and set all the cities on fire. That's not what the Bible says happened. Only some of the cities were destroyed. Most of the cities were taken over, and some of the cities weren't even taken over. They were unsuccessful. So these details are important. Okay. We're also told that Joshua destroyed all the Anakites, the sons of Anak, except for those in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod, which are 3 Philistine cities, where Goliath, the son of Anak, would come from. So these are very tall people, terrifying warriors that are talked about elsewhere. Deuteronomy 2, so many places. All right, Joshua 12. We get a list of defeated kings here. 2 kings east of the Jordan, which were Sihon and Og. And then 31 defeated kings on the west side of the Jordan River in Israel proper. Joshua chapter 13. Okay, Joshua is very old. It's not me saying this. The scripture calls him very old.
But I will say, just chime in.
Please.
Psalm 136, they reference the defeat of Sihon, King Sihon and Og.
Yeah.
In Psalm 136.
They do.
It's a litany, or it's a big prayer where the congregation always says, "For his steadfast love endures forever," or his love, or his mercy endures forever, or his love, depends which translation. But they reference this defeat of Sihon and Og, so they must have been pretty famous stand-up guy because they are listed as very famous kings, not just your ordinary, like your average.
And controlled a lot of territory.
Yes.
So it was a huge win for Israel because the news of the wiping out, like the takeover of Israel of that territory, made it over to the west side of the Jordan, and everyone was freaked out. We learned that by Rahab.
That's right.
We've heard about you.
That's
We've heard of what has been happening.
So it puts Sihon and Og on the same level as Pharaoh in terms of power. So that tells you like just the degree of what they were defeating. But anyways, I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, a really big deal.
Yeah.
Really, really big deal. And that becomes a part of the land of Israel.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Where was that? Okay, Joshua's very old, and we're told there's very large areas of the promised land left to be taken over, even though Joshua's really old. We're told like the area of the coast of the Mediterranean Sea the Philistines still have that as a stronghold. We learn that the Geshurites who are living in the land, they're still there and they will not be driven out. Now, later on, David is actually going to make a marriage alliance with the king of Geshur. He's going to marry the princess of Geshur. It's not going to go great because Absalom, but we'll get there. All right, we're also told how the land was divided up on the east side of the Jordan, that territory of Sihon and Og, between the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh. Joshua 14, we get the land divisions on the west side of the Jordan. So which tribes got which territories. There is a special allotment for Caleb, who is from the tribe of Judah, but he's one of those original 12 spies that went into the land.
Right.
And Caleb and Joshua were the only faithful ones. So Joshua receives the very important city of Hebron. Hebron's important. Do you remember why? Hebron's important because Abraham purchased land at Hebron as a burial plot. So the cave of Machpelah is at the city of Hebron. So it's associated with the beginning of the Israelite nation. It's going to be clarified later on in Joshua chapter 21 that the town of Hebron itself was actually a city of refuge. So even though it was Caleb owned the territory around it, the city itself was run by the Levites. It was a Levitical city, specifically given to the Kohathites. There's tribes within the tribe of Levi, or clans, I should say. So that's interesting. A really important city. David's going to reign as king of Judah from the city of Hebron. It's a really important city. Okay, Joshua chapter 15 continues Judah's land allotment, and also this story about how a very old Caleb leads a military takeover of his territory that has been allotted to him, and how he drives out 3 Anakites, those sons of Anak, the giant people. Othniel, this man named Othniel, wins Caleb's daughter's hand in marriage for defeating a stronghold city. And then she's given an inheritance, a dowry from her father. And then she asks for more. So this story is given a lot of space. It's interesting. And Caleb's like, yeah, sure, here you go. It's interesting. All right, that's all in Joshua 15. Joshua 16, Ephraim and Manasseh's allotment. These are the sons of Joseph, who, because Joseph's given a double blessing by his father Jacob back in Genesis 49, he becomes 2 tribes. He becomes Ephraim and Manasseh, not just Joseph. There's a note that Ephraim was unable to dislodge the Canaanites in the city of Gezer. There's all sorts of these notes sprinkled throughout these chapters. Joshua chapter 17, Manasseh's allotment is continued. Specifically, they're said to have really struggled with the Canaanites in their territory because the Canaanites had iron chariots. They asked Joshua for more territory that had already been cleared of those pesky Canaanites. But Joshua essentially says, don't be afraid of the iron chariots. God is more powerful than the iron chariots. And if you are afraid, then just go take some of the forested hill country, clear it, and make your own cities, guys. You kind of get this feeling like I'm too old for this.
Yeah, that's right.
Grow up, trust God. But honestly, iron chariots against foot soldiers is not cool. That's rough. That is a rough, if you know anything about.
Elaborate.
Well, iron chariots you can stop them. They were heavy, they were fast. They could just run you over. No problem.
They're like the tanks of the day.
And in order they were very much like tanks. And people who raced them, like from ancient archives that we do have, were seen as a little bit insane because you would only train specific personalities of horses for warfare because horses would naturally flee from noise, from scary things.
Cattle. Yeah.
So they would only choose horses that their instinct is to run towards and get whipped up into a frenzy. So there's tons of accounts of trainers getting killed, training chariot horses and war chariots. So imagine you're just a man, sure, wearing some armor. You've got a sword a spear, maybe a slingshot, and then there's 900 or even 100, even one
Yeah.
iron chariot being pulled. So very strong chariot being pulled by a war horse who is whipped up into a frenzy and cannot stop.
And it's an armored war horse.
Very loosely controlled. They can easily kill you just by stomping on you.
Yeah.
So this is a very scary, formidable thing. And Israel doesn't have, for all intents and purposes, it does not look like Israel even has the technology of the war horse yet.
Right.
We see them building towards this in the time period of David. But
cool.
we'll get there.
We'll get there soon.
We will get there. Okay, I'm going to speed up through this. Joshua 18, Israel sets up the tent tabernacle at Shiloh. Shiloh means peace. So this is interesting. The tent tabernacle goes from Gilgal, which is a war camp, to a city that they call peace.
Shalom.
So it's this transition into. All right. They also appoint 3 men from each tribe to make a survey of the land, essentially a map. They're mapping out the land. And Joshua then, after they're done this, he's like, I'm going to divide via lot all of the territory specifics at the entrance to the tent tabernacle at Shiloh. So then we get Benjamin's lot in Joshua 18. In Joshua 19, we get the rest of the tribes. And we also get told that Joshua got a special portion just like Caleb did, where Caleb chose Hebron. Joshua asks for Timnath-Serah. That's his city that he wants. Joshua chapter 20, we see the cities of refuge being named, and a summary of their use is given. And interestingly, we're told specifically how a fugitive would gain entrance to a city of refuge. So we know that if you accidentally killed somebody, you would flee to a city of refuge so that you wouldn't be killed by that person's family or allies. So essentially, the fugitive would present themselves at the gate of the city. The elders of the city would make a place for them until a trial date could be arranged before the assembly of Israel. And then they would decide, is this person legitimately an unintentional murderer, or did they intentionally murder this person? If they intentionally murdered that person, they got capital punishment. If it was unintentional, they had to live out a life sentence in the city of refuge. Okay, Joshua 21, towns for the Levites are given. Remember, the Levites didn't get a chunk of territory in Israel like the other tribes. They got cities within because they're the priestly tribe. So we see the clans of Levi receiving their cities, the Kohathites, the Gershonites, and the Merarites. In Joshua 22, Joshua sends those 3 tribes who have settled on the east side of the Jordan back to their territory. The fighting men had come over and still helped with the conquest of the promised land, and now they're going home. But on their way home, before they cross the Jordan River, they stop and they build an altar. This is taken as idolatry by the rest of Israel. The rest of Israel's like, what are you doing? Are you already going to enact pagan worship? And they assemble together and they decide, we're going to have to fight them now. This means civil war. But first, they send Phinehas the priest and 10 men, one from each of the other tribes of Israel, to go find out why are you so quickly breaking faith with God? Why are you delving into idolatry? But it turns out that the altar was not built to be used. The tribes are like, no, we're not building it to be used. We're building it as a memorial, saying that we worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on an altar like this. But not on this altar, on an altar like this. Seems like a bit of a dangerous thing to do.
And
but
does it become dangerous?
Not that we know of, but probably. The Bible never specifically says, and this became...
Like the bronze serpent or something like that, right?
But I mean, we do know that Israel very quickly devolved into idolatry, so
right.
Likely, chances are good.
So the question is, in the narrative, is this supposed to be like suggestive? This is the first sign that something has gone off, or is it supposed to be miscommunication? So generally speaking, the text doesn't, it's usually pretty harsh. It's not like, oh, we were just miscommunicating, we're all just on our happy way. Generally speaking, it puts things in there to be like, this isn't a soft red flag. Something's there to indicate that something else is going to happen soon. Generally speaking.
So I actually think that this sets a precedent, not the building of the altar.
Right.
The response to the building of the altar is supposed to be precedent setting.
Yeah.
So when you think your brothers are engaged in idolatry,
Yeah.
you go for it. You go find out if it's idolatry. And if it's idolatry, it's a no-go. You cut them off from Israel.
Right.
If it's not idolatry, fine. But this is setting that precedent for following the law.
Yeah.
Because in the law, in Deuteronomy, it's very specific. Where if a town, even if it's an entire town, is engaged in idolatry, you cut that town off from Israel. You treat them as if they're hostile enemies.
Right.
Hostile enemies if they're not willing to repent and things like that. So I really think that this is supposed to set a precedent of how you root out idolatry and make sure there's not idolatry going on.
So the altar was seen as permissible, even by the priests and Levites. Okay.
Yes.
In which case then, how does this apply to us today? Very similarly, if the altar is symbolic, it's a symbol, it's a sign that points to something else, right? That was the point of the altar, which is to be symbolic of the altar, right? The other altar.
But I think when you add into it the context of Judges, which we're going to get to, we realize that it's probably a bad idea.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's probably the altar was probably a bad idea. And why I think it's supposed to set a precedent is because on next week's Weekend Show and in the reading, we're going to get there. But essentially, when we see Gideon, the judge Gideon, he makes a replica too. But it's not a replica of the altar of God. It's a replica of the ephod of the high priest. And whether he intended, the Bible seems to indicate that he did not intend it to be used for worship or to become an object of worship.
But then
it does. Even during his lifetime, he's unable to stop the Israelites from worshiping it.
Yes.
And you know what? No one does a thing. This precedent is not held up in the time period of the Judges.
So this goes back to the original point. This is an indication. Mm-hmm. This is like how it always works. It always there's a soft, subtle detail. You can call it a loophole, whatever it is. There's something that's not, and no one can see. Well, I guess in principle it's fine.
Yeah.
And everyone doesn't see an issue with it. But there's a reason why we got there, right? That has not been seen. So there's something underpinning it. So it's like people are just trying to be faithful, and good intentions always pave the path to hell, is that old saying, right? So, but then there's something else to it.
And what makes this doubly confusing, to be fair to Ephraim, to these 3 tribes, 2.5 tribes on the west of the Jordan, east of Jordan. Is that Joshua had been building altars.
Yeah.
Apart from the tent tabernacle. And later on, Samuel's going to be building some altars on high places apart from the altar of sacrifice at the tent tabernacle. And that seems to be fine.
Yeah.
That seems to be fine. Maybe it's because they're the leaders of Israel specifically.
Yes. Right.
And the intent is clear. It's like it's the priest who's doing it. But it's like it feels like a gray area.
Right. Yeah.
But it gets utilized for evil later.
Yeah, because it depends on its usage and how it can be communicated, right?
Yes.
So there's certain practices and certain rituals that people do that can be abused, especially objects always get abused, right?
Always.
It's just the way it is. And people just misunderstand it. If there's room for misapplication, there will be a misapplication. So if it's obviously, if it's especially when it's public use, when it's private use, it's right, or just, or just the elder or the priest is using it. That's different because something's being communicated that he can reserve and retain the meaning of it. But when it's just like, oh, we have this altar here now, and it's right. Oh, what did that mean again? You know what I mean? It's like this sets a stage, ironically, because altars were like stages. But yes. Anyways, yeah.
No, it's very true.
Yeah. So what's next?
Okay. I'm just deciding if I'm going to read this part or not. Okay, yeah. Joshua 23, there's a reminder and a warning from an aged Joshua. He's about to die, so he's deciding what to tell to the Israelites before he goes. So I'm going to read to you a part of it. I'm going to read to you Joshua 23, verse 9 to 13. The Lord has driven out before you great and powerful nations. To this day, no one has been able to withstand you. One of you roots 1,000 because the Lord your God fights for you, just as he promised. So be very careful to love the Lord your God. But if you turn away and ally yourselves with the survivors of these nations that remain among you, and if you intermarry with them and associate with them, then you may be sure that the Lord your God will no longer drive out these nations before you. Instead, they will become snares and traps for you, whips on your backs and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from this good land which the Lord your God has given you. Rough stuff. Now, it's really tempting for us, I think, because of our modern Western lens, that when we read this, we read often racism.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean, don't intermarry with these people? No. It's not about racism. It's about religion. The people of the land were getting driven out, kicked out of the land because of their evil religious practices that had them sacrificing children and all these terrible things. And God did not want his people God's people still have no business with practices like that.
Oh, yeah.
You can't join God to pagan gods and ritualistic practices. You should not do it. You will be judged for it. And it's the same concept of, by partaking in something devoted to destruction, you become devoted to destruction. Sin is death. The wages of sin are death. And we know, just as quick scriptural backup that I'm not making this up, I'm going to take you to Deuteronomy 7, which was written for these people specifically. I'm going to read Deuteronomy 7, verses 3 to 5, which is a prohibition against this type of marriage. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your children away from following me to serve other gods. And the Lord's anger will burn against you and will quickly destroy you. This is what you are to do. Break down their altars, smash their sacred stones, cut down their Asherah poles, and burn their idols in the fire.
Yeah, this is in when they return from exile as well, in Ezra and Nehemiah. This principle that it's not about ethnicity or the flesh and racism, all these different things, is about their religion.
Yes.
And their religion is, Rahab joins them, right?
She sure
Jericho,
does.
and she's not a Jew by blood.
Ruth joins them.
Yeah.
And she's a Moabite.
She's a Moabite. So,
but she renounces the Moabite gods and takes on the Israelite God as her own and becomes an Israelite.
Inherently, Israel fundamentally, what it means to be Israel is a covenantal relationship with God.
Yes.
Fundamentally, first and foremost. You see this in Romans 2, right? If you start sinning, you're now uncircumcised and therefore no longer Israel.
Mm-hmm.
You become Israel by staying in that covenantal relationship.
Yes.
It is the primo de facto basis of what it means to be Israel. So this is necessary. It's how we need to see it. And if we don't look at it through that lens, if we're looking at it just through ethnicity, we're going to get deeply confused.
Yeah.
Because even today, like how you read the New Testament, all these different things, if we just look at Israel being fundamentally about flesh and blood, we're going to confuse ourselves because it's never been about the flesh and blood. It's never been about race, all these different things.
Race is just culture. We all come from Adam and Eve. We all come from Noah and his sons. We are all made in the image of God.
Yeah.
Okay. We all are. But the who you are allied with makes a difference.
Yeah.
Not racially, religiously.
Yes.
Because if the person that you're marrying, if you are God's child and they are not God's child, that's going to be a source of issue. That's going to be a source of
100%. I've said this before. Israel means the kingdom of God.
Yes.
That's what it means. It actually, technically means one who wrestles with God.
Mm-hmm.
And who named Israel? Jesus Christ, pre-incarnate. So if you're not wrestling with Christ, you're not wrestling with God, you cease to be in a covenantal relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
This is this idea. So it's so fundamental for us to see it through that lens, that it's covenantal. Otherwise, it actually can stimulate the opposite, where the Jews today, or anyone, it could be more special based on their flesh and blood, someone more special. It's like, no. We're all humans made in the image of God. What it means to be a child of God, to be adopted by God, right, is through Christ our Lord. And so this is just necessary. Otherwise, it leads to racism in all different types of directions.
Yeah, so let me read this to you. This is also from Deuteronomy, from the law, okay?
Yeah.
Deuteronomy 10, I'm going to start in 17. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality.
Yeah.
And accepts no bribes. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. And you are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. Fear the Lord your God and serve him. Hold fast to him and take your oaths in his name. He is the one you praise. He is your God who performed for you those great and awesome wonders you saw with your own eyes.
Yeah.
So that was 17 to 21.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It sums it up.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to finish up with the last chapter here, Joshua 24. Joshua renews the covenant one more time. There's been several covenant renewals. I think they were trying to drive home the point that the covenant was important.
We need to be Israel. That's the whole point. We only have this land if we're Israel, right? That's the fundamental thing. No, we need to be like be in a covenantal relationship with God, and so that's the reason why the sacrifices were instituted, so that they can keep asking for forgiveness on a regular basis.
Yes.
So we retain that covenantal relationship, and so it's just
this is where we get that beautiful line where Joshua's doing the covenant, right? And he's like, you guys have to choose who you're going to serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Yes.
As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That's from Joshua 24.
We will serve Christ. That's this principle, this commander of the Lord's army.
Joshua dies at the age of 110. Pretty good.
It's pretty good.
And he's buried in the city that was his special inheritance that he asked for. Timnath-Serah, also called Timnath-Heres. We're given some housekeeping notes. Remember Joseph in Egypt?
Yes.
Who was mummified?
Yes.
We're told that Joseph's bones have been buried at Shechem, the city of Shechem. We're told Eleazar, the high priest, son of Aaron, died and was buried at Gibeah, which was his son Phinehas's inheritance. And we're told that Israel served God during the rule of Joshua and all the elders that outlived Joshua, which is a bit of an ominous way to end the book of Joshua, because you're like, just that one? Just those lives?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. And it is going to turn out, yeah.
Well, that was good.
We went super over time.
We did, but that was good, Corie.
We're going to save the viewer questions for next
Is there any question that pertains to this one specifically, or no? One. I'll do it quickly. Cynthia, I saw your comment on our video from a few weeks ago. Cynthia Morrison, 2803. She says, is this where we ask questions? Yes. I saw it, Cynthia, and I got it. When Israel began to conquer other lands and take plunder, did they eat the animals/produce, or were they still eating manna, or both? Thank you very much for your consideration. Appreciate this program very much. Yes, Cynthia, the Bible tells us actually in Joshua chapter 5 that first Passover that the Israelites celebrated at Gilgal before they even took over the city of Jericho, they harvested grains from the fields and ground them up and made the leavened bread. And as soon as they celebrated that Passover with the bread that they had made, the manna stopped. So then they were fully reliant on the produce from the promised land. So that's that. That's great. All right, guys, we have a couple more questions for next week's show. Thank you for sending those in. I hope that you have a really great week. If you have questions, pop them down in the comment section below. I'll be sure to plug them into future episodes. Happy reading and studying. See ya.